Hi, I'm Perry Atkinson, General Manager here at the Dove. Hey, check out our other videos and check out our website at theDove.eus. All right, welcome back, and delighted to have in the studio with us today Caleb LaPlante and Steve Raycraft. Both these gentlemen want to deal with the problem and have been quite effectively the problem with sex trafficking in the Southern Oregon and the prevention project we want to talk to them about. Gentlemen, thanks for coming in. Good to see you guys. And give us an update, Steve. What's going on?
I wish we had more than 12 minutes because we have so many things going on now. We've been at this for 3+ years, and we've taken our baby steps. We've gotten now to a point where we are making connections across the board with law enforcement locally, with our representatives, both our U.S. and our local state legislators, and in the schools. Now we've started to make connections in the schools, so things are happening with ACT Southern Oregon, and we've got a brand new chapter in Jackson County, Medford as well. So right. Lots of good things happening. That's
wonderful. All right. And Caleb, the Prevention Project, tell us about it a little bit.
Prevention Project is a program that was designed by International Justice Mission, and it's run by a group out of Virginia. So it's more predominant on the East Coast, but we've been working for about a year to bring it here to our communities. And Grants Pass High School will be the first high school on the West Coast to bring this program. It's a 6-part curriculum, and it covers trafficking from the big picture internationally all the way down to what is a pimp and redefining some of these cultural norms that have been spun on us and getting us back to really not only with pimp, the word pimp and what that role is, but in terms of just the general over-sexualization of our media and our culture in general. And it finishes with a student empowerment lesson. What can you do to make a better world, and how, as even a teenager, can you start getting involved in social justice issues?
So the goal here is to even get the students aware of what's going on, right? I mean, get them tuned in that this is happening, look for these people.
That's a big piece of what we're doing, and we're so blessed that Linda Smith with Shared Hope International was on Focus on the Family both yesterday and today. She's addressing that same question. She's got a survivor of trafficking that's on, and the whole message that they're promoting with their chosen video into the schools right now is to protect kids by giving them the awareness, the information, and the red flag warning signs on what this looks like, how it works. The children that get caught up into trafficking are not stupid kids. You know, they're intelligent, but they are unaware of how the process works, and they're caught off guard, and they're trapped into a lie that looks like something wonderful that entices them into that situation. And that's what happens with the girl Lacey that's on the program with Linda Smith today. And that's the case, the story in a lot of cases. And if we can get that awareness and that information into kids' hands and into our educators and into our parents' hands as well, so that they can be on the lookout. But the kids need to know and need to be informed, and that's what we're working on in a big part right now.
All right, again, let me just highlight this because I don't want to lose it. You got the 6-part series coming up here, Caleb, so it's going to be at Grants Pass. Give us a date and time.
The students will actually have a sort of a month-long awareness effort during January, led by their student leadership. We did this in partnership with their student leadership last year, and it was just a January event last year. But this year, that full month will then lead into, on February 4th, the first day of class for the Prevention Project. And within the month of February, they will run through all 6 classes. And then, before the year's out, they'll run through that whole series again. So there'll be twice this semester.
Are students getting it, Steve?
Oh, well, when they're giving the information, yes, they get it. It's a surprise to them because they're unaware of it themselves, but they don't have any problem understanding.
Okay.
It's pretty simple.
What about parents?
And parents do too. It's the idea that they have no idea, no concept that this is actually happening in our world and in our local communities. They think it's a problem that's happening somewhere else in the world, somewhere else in the United States, in the big cities maybe, but not down here in Southern Oregon. And that's where we are blind. And parents and kids are blind to those facts. And we are bringing that awareness. That's our goal. But if I can just segue too, that's not the only thing we're doing here. We're doing a lot of other things as well. And I think Caleb mentioned that we're working with the Three Rivers School District now to bring awareness into that school district in Grants Pass. But we are doing proclamations with various city and county governments here in Southern Oregon this month, because this is Child Trafficking Awareness Month in Southern Oregon. So we've been to the city of Grants Pass and Josephine County already, and yesterday to the city of Medford.
Good.
We have Jackson County coming up. We have Central Point and Ashland.
Great.
All issuing proclamations, so the government, city governments and the county governments are recognizing this issue.
All right. How big of a problem is it in Southern Oregon? And the reason I ask that, because we've been talking about it, and I think you make a good point on that. Everybody thinks it's at the other town, but here we are on the I-5 corridor. We're an area, aren't we? Mm-hmm. How big is it?
I like to say that there's 3 ways that we see this in Southern Oregon. And for any parents or even young people listening, the first is that we have our own kids being sold here. When I got involved in 2011, there was a 14-year-old out of Grants Pass who had been sold within the Rogue Valley for several months before law enforcement were able to apprehend these 3 individuals, I think, that were responsible for selling her. Wow. That got my attention, but as we've become more engaged with this over the last 3.5 years, we've learned that the other 2 ways, of course, are the I-5 corridor that you mentioned. Shared Hope International, which sponsors our group, figures that on any given week you can find 35 victims of child or adult trafficking for sale on websites in our Rogue Valley area. And that's due entirely to, almost entirely to the I-5 corridor being right on what law enforcement, federal FBI level law enforcement calls the kiddie track. Mm-hmm. The third way is we are not educating our youth, and when they become adults at 18, they leave our area and they go to a city. There's at least one very well-respected survivor from our area who went to U of O and met her trafficker on the U of O campus. And was trafficked for 6 years as a result. So we have 3 distinct ways that this can affect youth from our area.
And we actually were talking with Detective Jim Williams with the Medford Police Department yesterday, and he was informing us that he's been following the activity, online activity, which is where you find quite a bit of it these days, is through Backpage.com, and that's how they market and traffic and sell these children.
Well, I had a gentleman come in my office a couple weeks ago. He brought his laptop in, and he showed me. He said, "Look at this. This is an innocent guy going around, but all of a sudden they'll show up on these flash ads on these various sites. You have no idea where they're coming from, but then you'll see the word where it'll actually say, if I remember right, available in Medford or something like that. Call this number." I mean, I'm going.
It's marketing in the 21st century. I mean, that's how it's done. And Detective Williams can track these ads on Backpage as they move these girls through up the I-5 corridor from California into Oregon, up through to Seattle, swing on over to Idaho, down into Wyoming and Utah, and then back down into Las Vegas, and they start to circle again. And they move these victims, these children and young adults through on that track. And Jim Williams, Detective Williams, has said that the activity is twice now this year what it was last year. So it's not getting better, it is getting worse at this point.
Despite efforts to raise awareness in our community, we only have to keep being persistent.
The awareness is up, the trafficking is up, and I know an effort to rescue is up. But
and the laws are up too. And we're working with our legislators right now. We're very tied into, our group is, with what the legislation is that's on the horizon, what happened the last legislative session, and what's coming up. And our local legislators are very much tuned into this. Senator Bates, Dwayne Stark, newly elected, Carl Wilson, newly elected, just to name a few, are very aware of what's happening and what the legislation is that's coming up. They'll be plugged into that. So we're working with that aspect as well.
You know, it's been said maybe we ought to just change the law pretty simple, make it a crime to buy sex instead of selling it.
That's one of the things that's on the horizon. It's a tough sell because we've always let the buyers off the hook. We've slapped them on the hand, and we've turned the victims into criminals and charged them with prostitution. And that's one big part of the problem. We need to really focus on the demand side and the buyers.
The police, where are they in this process? What's happening with them?
Baby steps. It's working. You want to mention the sheriff's campaign?
Yeah, and what Steve's alluding to is Jackson County Sheriff. We can't as a group speak firsthand to what they're doing, but we're in partnership with a representative of A21 campaign, an internationally recognized trafficking group. And she's from our area, she lives here, and so we're working together with her on some projects, and she has shared with us that she's made headway with the Jackson County Sheriff to actually line item budget money to develop a task force and dedicated training program for the Sheriff's Department. That's the county sheriff level. Right. Steve mentioned Detective Williams at the Medford PD level. He is their point man for all of this kind of activity. So, I mean, on both city and county level, we're making progress and we're getting our law enforcement trained.
All right, back to the students just for a moment. How do you describe the word pimp to them?
Well, it starts with just bringing up the word and finding out, what their concept of it is, and then circling back to the reality of what's going on, and that when the opportunity is there, it's part of that education process. Is let's really look at what's going on here. Mm-hmm. There's a concept, there's a preconception of what's really going on. Let's really dig deeper and see what's going on, and let's look at these people that we've labeled as pimps and glamorized, and let's look at the sexualization of our culture. Let's look at how pornography is affecting this issue, and address all those things.
Okay, so I guess what I'm also looking at is that you're saying to the student, if an outsider comes into your life and starts promising everything, isn't that the first indicator something's going wrong here? Mm-hmm. I mean, but yet that's not to take away from, I realize that some of these pimps are actually insiders too, but for the most part it's an outsider, isn't it?
It can be either one. I mean, there's a thousand different ways, a million different ways that this works, but typically, again, they're not presenting themselves as pimps. They're coming in as just that good-looking older boy that cares about me all of a sudden and is talking to me, and then I bump into him again, or he calls me up or whatever, and it's a relationship, a grooming process that happens, and that's how these victims often get caught up, is because they are lured in slowly, and they develop a relationship first, and before they know it, they're into something totally unexpected, out of their control.
I'd like to add that the word pimp is really put at the center of this issue, and that certainly is more times than not there is a pimp involved, and that's synonymous with the word trafficker. Trafficking is force, fraud, and coercion. However, traffickers are not just pimps. If you listen to Linda Smith's second part interview that's coming up on your program at 9.
At 9 this morning, right?
Yeah, she has talked in part 1 about how Lacey was spotted. There were boys that were paid by a trafficker to help get information about her hopes and dreams so the trafficker could exploit those when he went after her. There are trafficking charges federally that are brought against hotel operators and taxi cab drivers. Anyone that's complicit, that knows that they're participating and is receiving money for participating, can be prosecuted as a trafficker. So we're not just talking about pimps. Even gangs are getting out of the drug business and getting into the trafficking business, because you can sell a person over and over again, and they're traffickers. They're not a pimp by definition, but they're a gang operation that can all be prosecuted as a trafficking crime organization as well.
Unbelievable. All right, so how can people help you guys? What do you need?
We would love to be in more schools locally. So whatever anybody would like to do to contact us and help facilitate that. We need more members in our groups, both in Medford and Grants Pass. The more people we have, the more we'll be able to do. Okay. Those two things always are really on the top of the list.
Our website is www.act Southern Oregon, and you can find out about our meetings, and you can find out about our awareness events. There are several going on this month.
ActSouthernOregon.com. ACT, SouthernOregon.com. Get a hold of them, be a part of this. And guys, thanks. I just, every time I take this topic on, my brain goes on tilt. But thanks for what you're doing. Keep us informed, and best to you on this project coming up. And then if you need help down the road, let us know, okay?
Yeah, we'll do.
Perry.
Thanks, Perry.
We'll be right back.